Hey YouTube, it's Dr. Roger Tomihama here and welcome back. This video is part of our series called MDs Getting Their MBAs. This episode will showcase a non-surgical medicine physician and his experience in getting an MBA.
Okay. Hey YouTube, what's going on? Welcome back to our series on MDs Getting Their MBA. And today we have Dr. Gabriel Lockhart. He is one of my classmates here at Wharton. What's up, man? How are you?
I'm good.
Thanks
for having me.
Thanks for doing this. I really appreciate it. So just a little background on Gabriel. He graduated from Ohio State University School of Medicine in 2013 and then stayed on to do an internal medicine residency there. Subsequent to that, he then took a fellowship position in pulmonary critical care at Washington University School of Medicine in St. Louis, Missouri. In 2019, he then took a position at National Jewish Health in Denver, at the nation's top-ranked respiratory institute, and became the director of the ICU there at their academic hospital in 2020. He currently maintains clinical privileges and practices there, but does other administrative and public health responsibilities. He's told me in the past very impressive accolades of achievements, and he continues practicing as doing an MBA. So welcome, Gabriel. Thank you for coming to be a participant in our YouTube channel episode for today.
Absolutely.
Yeah. So we'll get some quick questions. We're going to first talk about just general admissions and what your experience is with that. And so can you tell us like a little bit how you got interested in getting an MBA and what was the thought process and what was your journey that started everything for you?
Yeah, I actually knew pretty early on I was going to get an MBA. This is even during college. I figured at some point I would come back to go back to school. I have a little bit of economics background. I wanted to first get down the practice of medicine, get more industrial experience, more in hands-on experience, and then eventually come back thinking I might do something more administrative and higher ups. So I think my timeline for that was accelerated.
Yeah.
As a pulmonologist and intensivist, I obviously was affected pretty deeply with the pandemic and just that. Being promoted to director of the ICU towards the beginning of that, and becoming a wartime chief at that really difficult stretch. It put a strain on me, and I was kind of accelerated the times for when I needed to really think about long term for my longevity of my career.
Yeah.
And so there was a moment, summer of 2021, where I felt like a little bit stifled, felt like I needed to expand my options a bit more. And it was right then and there, just something that clicked that said, hey, I need to just look at the process of applying.
Yeah.
And so then I bought some books to study for the executive assessment, took that about a month later, and then I just started having some applications for all around.
So this was like, I assume, so if we started, the applications were in like December, this was like in the summer or the fall?
Yeah, so I end of July in 2021,
okay,
I started, it just one day just got on Amazon and said, hey, I'm going to buy some books and just see what the process is like.
Got it.
And then 1 month later, I took the test. And then after that, I looked into more into the application process. And I looked all over. I was living in Denver, and I thought, I could definitely want to do something local versus having something more national. At the time, I didn't have any kids. I had a significant other, but she was very open to me traveling frequently to go to these classes. And so I looked from coast to coast to really see and have the option just to really dive deep and ask a lot of questions. And be open-minded about what the experience would look like. I knew I wanted to work while going to school, and so the executive program was going to be the only option I was really looking at versus a part-time or online option as well.
Yeah.
So any place that didn't have an executive program, I kind of ruled out.
Yeah.
So I didn't apply to the Harvard. I didn't apply to Stanford.
Yeah.
But any other place, I was really open towards, and I really just wanted to hear from individual students from those schools that were currently taking classes, hear their experience, and really distill down from there what made sense to me.
Got it. So, if you don't mind sharing, what programs did you apply to, and what was your top 5 choices?
I mean, I literally I looked at it was not a great source to look at really, but the U.S. News World Report looked at top 20, top 30 schools, and anything that piqued my interest, I just went down the list and applied for. I received interviews every place I applied for, and any place I really did the work for, I got into. But from East Coast, Duke, Yale, Vanderbilt, and then UCSF, and then University of Colorado. So I thought for sure I was going to go to University of Colorado.
Okay.
And the reason for that,
it's local, easy.
Yeah, it was like so I always did well in school. I never had to pay tuition. I always got scholarships whenever I was going to school. And so I was thinking, MBA, like, come on, I don't want to pay a lot to get an MBA. So whatever school is going to give you the most money or have a reasonable tuition, I'm going to always pick that.
Yeah.
But University of Colorado was a lot cheaper. It was local for me. And then I found out late in the application process that we were due for our first child. And
congratulations, by the way. He's a couple months. How long?
Now, almost a year now. Yeah,
a year in.
Yeah.
So he did it during programs, so it's possible.
Yeah. It was. I don't recommend it, but it can be done.
Yeah.
But I really changed my focus. I started, considering all programs to narrowing the ones that didn't have twice a month coming in to fly in twice a month. So I cut out all of those programs, not realizing that Wharton was one that did that twice a month, because it was my first application that I filled out, and I kind of forgot what the actual program was about.
Yeah.
And then I went through the rest of the applications, weeded out the ones that were twice a month, and then focused more on the local ones because I wanted to be nearby for family's sake. And then, so thinking I was entirely going to go to University of Colorado, it was cheaper and local, I kind of still just floated out the idea, learning from the former Wharton graduates and current students, kind of what it really looked like, what doors it opened, got more and more, interested in what that meant long term in the national scale, and realized that, I am kind of interested in it. I've never attended an Ivy League school, never even applied to an Ivy League school, and I was just curious, I've done well in school. I just wanted to have a spot check for myself to see if, can I do it? Can I succeed with it? And what doors would that open additionally? And so that kind of shaped why my interest in Wharton grew more and more, as opposed to going to something more local.
So was it essential, not to cut you off, but was it essentially just University of Colorado and Wharton? Those are like the two that in the end you were really considering, or was the East Coast one still even in the mix? Or
once the pregnancy news came in, I started to cut out more of the East Coast schools, unless there was like a significant, scholarship they would have offered, but otherwise I was going to cut them out.
Yeah.
It came down to the end between Wharton and the San Francisco branch, because it was closer for me, University of Colorado and UCSF. And UCSF gave me a decent scholarship. And it was
now,
only
just to clarify, UC, you mean Berkeley, or was it?
Sorry, Berkeley.
Okay.
And so it was only once a month. It was a decent scholarship that I received, and it seemed to be, if I was going to make that plunge to leaving, my fiance and kid, that was just a reasonable, at least a less intrusive way to do that.
Sure.
But then, I kept on creeping up on me the benefits of Wharton and, things I described earlier. And I was talking over with my fiance, and really she could see my face glowing with the idea of going to Wharton.
Yeah.
And she, with her, she gave me the blessing, also gave me the push to really pursue Wharton instead of doing something more local for the sake of cost and convenience.
Would, if you don't mind sharing, how much of a cost difference would have been between Wharton versus University of Colorado versus Berkeley with the scholarship? Was it a significant difference, or is it like, are we talking about thousands or like tens of thousands, or like what was? I mean, and how do you make that decision? Because that sounds like it could be like hey, that's like my kids' future tuition. Opportunity cost for your children. I don't know.
It was a hard decision because I everywhere along the way from undergraduate through residency, I made the financial savvy, or at least immediately financially savvy decision, so I didn't leave training with any debt. And that was important to me. But this time around, I wanted to push myself a little different direction to do and put myself out in a comfort zone. So the Wharton tuition was like about $211,000 or so, some 210s. And I got like a drop in a bucket scholarship. I got, I think, like $10,000.
That's still good.
Maybe it covers my flights, but I got about a $10,000 scholarship for Wharton. And then for Berkeley, it was I think the baseline tuition was like 170s.
Oh, okay.
And I got a $20,000 scholarship, so that's a $50,000 to $60,000 difference. And then University of Colorado, I think the baseline was like $58,000, and I got about half of that taken off.
Wow. For 2 years?
For 2 years.
So it would have been like 30,000
for the whole thing.
Wow. So 30,000 versus.
I could have just written a cash check.
Yeah.
Like, all right, cool.
That's my bonus from the last year. Like, I covered, and you wouldn't have to deal with any travel. Wow. So that goes to show how much you really much value the Wharton brand, to make that financial investment, to make that time, to make that inconvenience commitment, and that's great. Especially that's amazing, and it sounds like you had a lot of great options. That's great. Funding. So now that's one of the questions. You chose Wharton. And then how did you reconcile the funding? What was the plan with work? Loans? I mean, what was the approach and the thought process with that?
Yeah, and so most doctors are going to have trouble getting funding from the workplace.
Yeah, I don't think anybody ever, I don't think any hospital or group is ever going to pay for an MBA.
Yeah, and I tried. So I created a PowerPoint presentation.
Oh, really? Oh, that's awesome.
I approached like the higher ups.
Yeah.
And they approached their higher ups.
Yeah.
Historically, they were trying to remain consistent, equitable, in the saying that they've never previously supported any master's program. And then if they started with me, then they'd have to do it with everybody. And so that was the approach they took with me. I tried. I was saying, here's the financial savings. If I guarantee I'll stick around X amount of years. Here's how much it costs to replace physicians over if they leave before 2 years or since they've been on. I'm trying to guarantee that this is something that I'm going to be invested in and have my time and they're investing in me in the future, and so that they can give back to the institution, have some sense of loyalty. So it didn't work, but I definitely worth trying. And so I ended up taking federal loans, and that was the whole debacle with interest rates going up. And then there was some a little bit of issues within the school's finance programs. They were switching software during the summer off, so there's some issues with that. I think that they're now saying, it used to be about 80% of students were getting their employers to cover their tuition. And now the inverse is true. Now about only a fifth are able to get their tuition at least supplemented by their employers. So that seems to be that direction going forward, unfortunately.
Okay, so thank you for that. That's great insight into the application process and admissions. So I want to talk about time management next, because that's always a big question for anybody who's going to get an executive MBA, but even more so for physicians, because weekends and stuff. So how do you work out time away from work to attend the classes from your employer?
Yeah, well, they didn't provide any financial support. They did, have a lot of support to get me to be able to fly out every other week. So that I was able to cut down my time to 70% full time.
Okay.
My schedule is made months in advance, and I can preference how I want my days off months in advance. And they gave me extra time to be able to do that and to make sure to supplement when I need time to make this work. And so, that's worked out fine. The classes here, the classwork in between the 2 weeks when we come in, it takes about 20 to 30 hours, depending on how motivated I am and what kind of classes that we're taking, and just the ebb and flow of the workflow. It can take 20 to 30 hours each week to supplement and study and do the assignments. I try to work while I'm at work as much as I can, and so I don't have to do it when I'm at home. Of course, it's not always the case, and often it doesn't work out that way, but I try to do that as much as I can to make it a little more efficient.
Got it. So since you're in pulmonary critical care and it's shift-based work, could you have done it where you didn't go down to 70%, and was that like required by your employer to say, hey, you're going to take every other Friday, which is only 2 days a month? And I assume with the shifts, you probably do like a 12 hours, and you do so many 12s a month. Was it required to take the 70%, or was that something you chose, or could you have stayed like 100% and just like, hey, I just need this Friday and this Friday each month? I don't know. Was there a discussion?
Yeah, no, so it was my choice to go down to 70%, and it was having a combination of flying, school, and a new kid that I wanted to just make sure I wasn't overloaded.
Got it.
And I'm actually going back to 100% starting actually next week. I'm going to go back to 100%. And it bodes well. I've got a year under my belt. I know kind of how to balance, at least I think I know how to balance things as best I can now. And the class work is the load's a little bit lighter if you choose the second year, and I've taken a little bit lighter workload the second year, so it's been more feasible. I just and with a new kid, it's a whole new experience of financial stress. So I wanted to get back on track with that as well.
What segues into my next question is how has it been challenging to incorporate the time for the MBA with your work, your family schedules? How did you approach this with your family? Any tips and strategies that work best? What did not work?
I would say it's a work in progress still. It's never ongoing. Typically, I've got too many spinning plates, and I actually added on more work responsibility as well. I was doing this program, took on a quality improvement chairman role and other responsibilities. So it's I'm still I'm better than what I used to. I think that being type A minded, as a lot of physicians are, you really want to do well in school, and you work really hard to make that happen. There was an evolution during the first year where I just was like, the grade doesn't matter. GPA doesn't matter at this stage. It matters just learning what you need to learn in order to apply it into everyday life. And once I kind of got made that transition from really caring about grades to really just focusing on the subject material, and especially things I'm interested in, and how do I apply that into my life, that made it a little bit easier. I would say my fiance is a little less mad at me for that, since I don't spend as much time, in the books as I used to. And so I think making that transition was helpful. Communicating early and often, and over communicating with your significant other about your needs for studying, and trying to work with their needs so that they are satisfied with your attention to the family and attention to them, and making sure that you give them priority throughout the week as well, and carve out time that you're not focused on school, not focused on work, so that they feel that you're present. But that takes a lot of over communication, a lot of attention to that, and don't just assume that it's going to happen naturally.
Really got to manage that expectations with everybody. Got it. Makes sense. So when we talk about the typical week at class, can you just walk us through what your typical WEMBA weekend is like? Like when you come in, your classes, and the breaks, departures, and all that stuff. What is your schedule like?
So usually we have the Friday, Saturday classes, occasional Thursdays. I like to fly in the night before, because I don't focus as well if I'm getting up at 3 a.m. to take flight, and then I'm stressing about getting in on time and all that. So unfortunately they don't cover the first night, the night before classes start, so that's out of my own pocket. But it's a little less stressful for me to come in casually the day before, relax, and just unwind a bit, and then have a good night of sleep, and then come in the first day of classes refreshed. I usually, I like to pamper myself, I guess, a little bit when I'm at the hotel, and I usually order room service for the breakfast coming in the next day, and just like have some. I like to have routine and have that happen. So then we come to classes at 9:30 that first day. Sometimes there's night classes at the end of the day, so we're leaving either after the 5 o'clock end of classes, getting dinner either here or elsewhere with friends, or as late as 9:30 when the class is let out. It varies in the schedule. And again, being a creature of habit, I usually alternate the weekends for when I actually go out with people. It's a great. I think the more you can go out and socialize, like that's a big part of why we go to MBA school and why we want to do the in-person as opposed to virtual MBA program, because you want to make those connections organically. I'm also getting old and in the stage of my life where I can't do that that often, and I sometimes just need the weekend night away from a crying baby to just relax and sleep and go to bed early. So I alternate weekends when I'm going out and socializing and building those connections as opposed to recharging my batteries while I'm here.
And then your departure, is it that evening that you can get the flight back to Denver, or do you have to take a red eye? What is
usually the flight is between 6:30 and 8:30, and
to get back to Denver is fine.
On Saturday night. Some people wait till the next day, but I need to get back so that my partner feels supported with our kid at home, so that we can. I'm trying to keep her needs in the forefront, so I narrow that gap as much as possible where I'm not there.
Yeah. Thank you for that. That's really great information. So wanted to get your impressions of the program. Like, what did you like about the program so far? What things you think could be improved? What's your thoughts on everything so far going through what you've been through?
Sure. I'd say no program's perfect. I think that, we're a very type A group in general. That's what a lot of people that come to a program like this are. For me, I'm pretty laid back in general. And so there's a lot of complaints that our classmates had that I just was like, nothing's going to be perfect. I think that it has taught me that I appreciate the education that I receive. I appreciate the teachers that we have, because there's some world-renowned experts, and I've had just a really amazing time with, especially there's a few key lecturers who are just like outstanding public speakers and just provide new light and perspective on subject material. I also would say that, I've done fine in class work here, and I also have a good appreciation for my public school education that I had before this, and that I thought I had great education there as well. And so, I think that the name Wharton is great. I think that I'm getting good education here. I also think that it's not some magical thing to get Ivy League education. I think that other public school institutions do a great job as well.
Got it, yeah. So. Anything that you think the program could do to improve? Like things you wish you saw differently?
I think some people had an impression that we were going to be pampered a bit more. I don't know. I think that they're doing just fine. I think we have good, decent food. Nothing's going to be perfect. I think some people are worried about some of the logistics, that sometimes things small logistical things slip through the cracks. Overall, I think that they're doing a good job. They're trying harder. I think that our career coaching could be a little bit more than I've had, but now they've made some adjustments. They're starting this new career coaching program that is just about to get going. So I haven't started yet, so I can't speak towards that. But it appears like they've taken our feedback and are positively making changes that I think is going to do really well for us. So I'm excited about that. And then, our hotel's been under construction for the last year, basically, and which isn't something that Wharton can have a lot of control over. So I mean, it's small things, but I think overall, like, I'm very satisfied. The price tag's a little hard to swallow, but I think overall I'm pretty satisfied.
Yeah,
And most importantly, the classmates, the people that are here. I love, especially our West Coast group here. It's a very with interactions with each other. It's a little, it's less intense than I've heard at other programs. We're very outgoing and they're very jovial. It's just brilliant and really accomplished people, and I think that's what really makes a difference between the people of our classmates and there's like key select lecturers that are just fantastic.
Yeah. Well, that's great. Well, again, thank you for your time, for sharing your thoughts about the program. It was very insightful, and I think the viewers out there will definitely get some get better perspective on the program and what to expect. So, again, thanks for coming on the show today. Really appreciate it.
Absolutely. Thanks for having me. This was fun.
Yeah, great.
All right.
Hey YouTube, thanks for watching our video, and subscribe to the channel for more upcoming great content in the future for learning about MDs getting their MBAs. See you later. Thank you.